So still in our Dearborn database, what we're going to do is modify an existing query, save it under a different name. And the query we're going to modify is the reps with 3 weeks of vacation. So we're going to go right into design view. And what we want to see are reps that have 3 or 4 weeks. Now, if you want 2 different criteria on the same field, if you look, we've got the 1 criteria row, and then below it you see or. So if you want 2 different criteria on the same field, you put the second one in the or row. And this is considered to be an or query. So what it'll do when we run it is it's going to show us reps that have 3 weeks or reps that have 4 weeks. So if you put the criteria on the same row, you have an and query. And if you put the criteria on 2 separate rows, you have an or query. So we're going to go ahead and save this right away. And we're going to call it reps with 3 or 4 week vacations query. A very long name, reps with 3 or 4 week vacations query. And then we will run it. And then we'll go ahead and close this one. And for our next one, it looks like we get to do a brand new one. So we want clients in the Indianapolis area with sales over 100,000. So we're going to go to create and query design. And we're looking at clients and sales. And from clients, we want client and city. And from sales, we just want sales. And so for our criteria, we said they have to be in the city of Indianapolis and they have to have sales over 100,000. So this is an and query. So we only want to see clients in Indianapolis and for the sales, they have to be greater than 100,000. Okay, so they're on the same row. This creates the and query. And we're going to go ahead and run this. So we can see that the city is Indianapolis and all of the sales should also be greater than 100,000. So we're going to save this. And we're going to call it sales over 100,000 Indianapolis query. And we will close out of that one. And at this point, we are done with this database. And we are going to open up PackTrack. And for PackTrack, we need a query that finds available products from suppliers 25, 31, and 42. So I'm going to go to create and query design. And we're looking at 2 tables, suppliers and products. From suppliers, we want supplier ID and supplier name. And then from products, we just want product. And we actually need to use ORs here because we want either supplier ID 25 or 31 or 42. So basically, each of those numbers needs to go on a separate criteria row. So we're going to do 25 on one row. And then we're going to do 31 on the next. And then on the following row, we are going to enter 42. So basically, if the supplier ID is any one of these three numbers, the record is going to display. Otherwise, it will not display. So we're going to run it. And all we should see under supplier ID are those three numbers we specified. And we are going to save this. And we're going to name it suppliers 25-31-42 query. And we'll close out of this one. And we're going to do another new one. And for this one, we're dealing with several tables. Actually, all three of them. Go ahead and add all of them. And from orders, we want the order ID. From suppliers, we want the supplier name. And from products, we want product. And then in our fourth column, we want another one from orders. We want units ordered. And then we basically want to see products that begin with ski hat or have ski hat in them, in the name. And we also want to see products that have the word gloves in the name. So somewhere in the name we need ski hat, and somewhere in the name we need gloves. So we're going to be utilizing wildcards here because we don't care what comes before ski hat. So we're going to do an asterisk, ski and ski hat. We also don't care what comes after ski hat. So we're ending it with an asterisk. So we want products that have ski hat in them, or on the next line, we want products that have the word gloves. So again, it does not matter what comes before gloves, and it does not matter what comes after. So we're going to have asterisk before and after. And when we run this, all we should see in the product column are products that have ski hat or products that have gloves. Okay, so you can see that it indeed worked. And we're going to go ahead and save. And we're going to call it ski hats, gloves on order query. And then we're going to close it. So we're going to do another query. For this one, we need to find boots, sleeping bags, or backpacks. And we want to see suppliers that produce them. So we're going to go to Create, Query Design. And this is going to be the Product and Suppliers table. From products, we want product ID and the product itself. And then from suppliers, we want the supplier name. Now we're looking for 3 different products. Okay, and it can be any of the products. And so for the first one, we want boots somewhere in the product name. So this is very similar to the last one. It's an asterisk, boots, asterisk. Okay, or the product can have sleeping bag in the name. So it's asterisk, sleeping bag, asterisk. Okay, or the product can have backpack in the name. Okay, so if the product has any of these words in the name, it will display. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, and you can see backpack, boots, sleeping bag, and we're going to go ahead and save. And we will be calling this one boots, sleeping bag, backpacks query. And we will close this. And at this point, we are going to close out of this database. We're not done yet. We're going to open up Hopper State. So I'm going to do another query in here. And in our design grid, we need the client and coverage tables. From clients, we want client ID. We want first name, last name. And then from coverage, we want medical and liability. And we basically want to see the clients that do not have medical coverage, but do have liability coverage. So if you remember from before, you can use true and false, or you can use yes and no interchangeably. So for medical coverage, we want to see people that don't have any. So you can key in false or no. And for liability, they need to have it. And this is an and query. These need to be on the same row. Now it looks like they actually want a couple more fields on the end of here. So we're going to add some more. Let's see, after liability, they wanted comprehensive. And they want uninsured motorist. And they also want collision. So we'll just make sure we get all of the little fields they want. The only two that have criteria are medical and liability. And again, their instruction was to key in a 0 and a 1. You can type false and true. You can also key in no and yes. Now they do want us to come over under comprehensive, and they want a false there. So you can either do a 0 or a false. For uninsured motorists, they want false. And for collision, they also want false. Okay, so we've got quite a few criteria. Basically, everything is false except for liability. Okay, so the only thing that should have a true is liability. And we're going to go ahead and run that. Okay, and you can just double check. The only column as far as claims that should have checks is liability. And we're going to save this. And the name is going to be clients with only liability query. Okay, and at this point, we will go ahead and close out of that.